Chapter 11. Adeste Fidelis. The voices, the memories, were all I had left. Bella, in her blue prom gown, put her phantom arms on my shoulders. "If you weren't 1,000 times stronger than me, I would never have let you get away with this." I fisted my hair viciously, but none of the strands came free. Not this time. Pulling my hair out wouldn't remove the memories from my mind. My fists moved to my eyes. "I miss you so much, Bella," I whispered. I'd been sitting here, on the banks of the river for I didn't know how long. For weeks I'd been searching the northeast for some trace, some whiff of Victoria, but had found nothing but death, human death. The death Bella would have, many years from now, I prayed. Victoria had returned to the U.S. a day after her carnage in Ontario, entering dangerously close to where my family had relocated. Before I could warn them, I'd received Alice's scathing text. "Nice sentiment. Do you worry this much about Bella?" That was nearly a month ago. In ever-widening circles I'd hunted, lurking around homeless shelters and dive bars, even checking out killings in the suburban areas around major cities without any success. In the midst of blizzards and ice storms I continued on, not bothering to feed. Each new murder scene brought a new body, another human life brought to a violent end. And with each failure, my grip on sanity slipped a little more. Sunny days found me curled up in my car, hiding in some shaded alcove, trapped with her and the growing crowd in my brain. A year, I'd promised myself, but I could see her window so clearly when I closed my eyes. I opened my eyes and stared at the water rushing past, imagining what the reunion might be like. She slept, her hair swept behind her in a tangled tapestry. With a deep, searing breath, I reached out to her cheek. The corner of her mouth turned up to meet my touch. With a sigh, she opened her eyes. "No!" I screamed. "It seems much easier for you, now," Bella whispered, her breath hitching. Yes, she came to me so much easier now. Other ghostly murmurs joined the chorus, pushing me over the edge. First, the obvious, my sister. "I love her too," she said, rubbing salt in the open wound in my chest. Then the obscure, a slightly too friendly lab teacher. "So, Edward, didn't you think Isabella should get a chance?" "Like you don't know," Jasper, of all people, answered. "Can't you see where you're headed?" Alice taunted from the past. Yes, I knew where I was headed. A year, I told myself. Couldn't you give her at least a year? Insanity had once been defined as doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results. I kept looking for Victoria, but found nothing. I kept telling myself I was strong enough to stay away from Bella, but every waking moment went to her. And without the ability to sleep, there was no respite. The cycle repeated. Day, night, light, dark. And nothing changed, except for me. Weak to start with, my will, and my body, had deteriorated even further with neglect. I'd proven that I wasn't good for Bella. Now I looked the part. Why couldn't I get it through my head, or through my missing heart, that I couldn't go back? In the distance, a coyote howled. An animal, that's all I was. If a coyote could chew his leg off to escape a trap, why couldn't I let my heart go, cut it free and move on? My stomach twisted painfully. "Because you're not in a trap," I told myself. Bella didn't cage me, capture me like prey. No, I was much worse off. My prison was of my own making, tended by the most beautiful creature to walk the earth. Instead of confining me, my Bella begged me to return, to give in, to hurt her, to damn her. She had her fingers locked around my heart, squeezing it every time I considered her offer. That's all I really wanted to do. Return and spend every last one of her human days with her. She'd age, become wrinkled by time and wisdom, but her beauty would never fade. Then she would drift away, rising to her forever, to the paradise she was so unwilling to accept. And I would finish my journey, throw myself into the void, begging for some relief from the emptiness. Why wait? The idea gnawed at me. It was the ultimate solution to permanently remove myself. "You are not allowed to hurt yourself!" Bella cried. I snorted at my memory. Too late. I'd done nothing but hurt myself. She didn't give up, moaning, "Stay, Edward! Stay with me! Don't leave me!" That's what I'd be doing by dying before she did, leaving her. I'd managed to pull my physical body from her, but my heart, my spirit remained with her, even if she didn't know it. Taking that final step, erasing my existence away from her permanently, was impossible, especially when I knew I was going back, someday. Bella appeared before me, standing in the snow, smiling. She was still in her gown, her arms open. How I loved that blue on her. My eyes closed, and I twirled with my love, under the crepe paper and balloons of prom. Maybe insanity wasn't as bad as I thought. "She's not for you," my conscience tried to warn, and failed. Another remembered voice ended our celebration. "Can I cut in?" My arms fell to my sides, and my eyes opened. The circle of footprints in the snow demonstrated just how far gone I was. The annoying boy in my mind continued, putting his filthy hands on my Bella's perfect waist. "You look really pretty, by the way." He interrupted my fantasy, spinning Bella away, just like he had months ago. She happily danced with him, far from my grasp. No, anyone but him. The Quilly Mirage looked at me and smiled. His face blurred slightly, becoming older, his clothes more primitive. The boy, Jacob, became his ancestor, Ephraim, still holding my Bella. "I'll protect her, save her, from you," he snarled, and whisked my Bella into the trees, exploding into his wolf form as he did. The next howl that broke the night broke me as well. Not him, not them, I thought, over and over. I'd kill them all before I'd let them take my Bella. I imagined chasing the wolves down, forcing their fur throat to my teeth, tasting their bitter blood on my tongue. Their strangled whimpers and screams brought a foreign laughter bursting out of me. No, they couldn't take my Bella. The last one to die was the boy, Jacob. Even his human blood was sour, a result of his breeding, no doubt. His scream was the most satisfying of all. The sensations were so real that my stomach warmed, filled with imaginary blood. It was with a start that I opened my eyes. The clearing around me was littered with dead coyotes. I could only stare in shock. My imagined attack hadn't been fictional. It wasn't wolves I'd killed, but their four-legged cousins. I'd also imagined killing him, Jacob, in human form, and terror consumed me. Slowly I inhaled, testing the air for the sweet cloy of human blood. How low had I fallen? Thankfully, all that greeted me was the musky tang of animal blood. I fell back into the snow, sated for the first time in months. The burn cooled, and the voices quieted. All but one. "I love you more than everything else in the world combined. Isn't that enough?" I scrubbed my face with my hands. If only my love could be enough. After disposing of the remains, I hiked back to the car, following my own trail to the end of the deserted road. Emmett would have laughed, seeing me so dirty. He always teased me for being such a neat eater. As I changed, I thought back on the past hours, and my loss of control. My mental instability wasn't solely due to my longing for Bella. I'd experienced what Carlyle had, centuries ago. My thirst had won, taken control. While he'd devoured a herd of deer, I'd taken down a pack of coyotes. I had to be more careful, lest I endanger something higher up on the food chain. Something human. In fresh clothes, I got back behind the wheel, but my initial problem still remained. Where would I go? Tracking down another killing seemed pointless, but I had to find something to occupy myself before I folded and turned west. I tried to divert my attention by parking close to a truck stop, hoping the murmur of other minds would distract me. An old red Chevy in the parking lot made distraction impossible. My head rested against the steering wheel, the ebbing darkness unable to negate the image permeating my vision. Though I'd regained most of my mental faculties, Bella still haunted me, her hand reaching out, unrelenting. "I was hoping that you might have changed your mind." I fingered my hair again, wondering if the pain of yanking it out might break the cycle, but was interrupted by a sharp rapping on my window. "Hey, mister, you okay?" Please let him be alive. The officer sighed with relief when I lifted my eyes to him and lowered my window an inch. "I'm fine, officer," I said, kicking myself for missing his approach. "You're as pale as the corpse they found at the river," he thought. The body without any trace of Victoria's scent, my latest literal dead end. "Where are you headed?" he asked. I wish I knew. "No trail?" Bella asked, between the officer's heartbeats. The patch on his shoulder told me that I was still in Kentucky. Before he could notice my hesitation, I pointed away from the rising sun. "St. Louis, just taking a break." He evaluated my appearance. "Sitting out here in this weather isn't the safest way to take a break. Fall asleep and you'll freeze to death." Once, I would have found his concern amusing. "Why don't you come into the diner and—" I turned my key, bringing my car to life. "No, thank you. I need to get going anyway." He considered arguing, but thought better of it, thumping the roof of my car instead. "More power to ya," he said, and walked toward the truck stop's diner. The cop didn't see me grimace at his words. More memories swept into my brain, and Charlie's voice rang out with laughter, just like it had after uttering the same words last spring. I couldn't join him this time, though. "You take care of my girl," he warned. God knows I'm trying. I drove about a mile away, then pulled over, out of sight of passing cars and helpful policemen. Without a destination, I truly didn't know where I was going. As I debated where to continue my futile search, my phone buzzed 3 times. Not a call, a message. Carefully, I opened the phone, wary of the source of the text. What I saw shocked me. Target detected. 4:25, December 20th, 2005, Laredo, Texas. When I'd set up my surveillance of the Border Patrol cameras, I'd hooked into the entire network, hoping to catch Victoria crossing back into the U.S. from Canada. I'd never bothered to disable my piggyback program after it served its purpose, and didn't expect Victoria to cross the border in that car again. The last thing I would have expected was to see her return from Mexico. My fist came down on the center console, destroying the useless cup holders. Victoria had crossed the entire country without my knowledge, without leaving a single clue in nearly a month. I'd been such an idiot. I'd spent an entire week fumbling through the environs of New York City alone, while she'd been where? Acapulco? Cancun? Damn it. Clarity returned as I turned the car southwest, speeding toward the Lone Star State. I fished my hat out of the passenger seat. Not even the sun would stop me. As the sky lightened, my foot crushed the gas pedal, threatening to push it completely through the floorboards. I crossed into Texas with different ghosts haunting me, phantoms that, for once, weren't mine. My only knowledge of the Lone Star State came secondhand, from Jasper. He'd spent decades wandering the scrub-covered flatlands of Mexico and southern Texas, killing humans and vampires alike. He'd made me privy to a sampling of the violence he'd participated in. My own experiences paled in comparison to the raw brutality he'd not only been subjected to, but inflicted on others. His conscience had long since been assuaged as he viewed his time with his Creator as one of war, though the scars he carried weren't as easily erased. Though he denied it to everyone else, I knew he hated living with his past written all over his skin, but we all had our scars. Sometimes I wished mine were as obvious as his. "You're still waiting for the running and the screaming, aren't you?" Yes. Maybe Bella would run when I saw her again. Unlikely, but if she did, I wouldn't follow. It was the thought of standing in her presence, no matter what the outcome, that made me suck in a cold breath. "A year," I whispered, and pulled off the freeway. I'd made good time today. The rain had kept the traffic light, and the miles had raced by under my wheels. I arrived at the gas station outside of San Antonio just after sunset. As if I didn't have enough to keep my phantom Bella with me, the music blaring through the station was Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes.
I get so lost sometimes. Days pass, and this emptiness fills my heart.
I jammed my credit card into the reader, but he continued on, turning my pain into melodic agony.
When I want to run away, I drive off in my car. But whichever way I go, I come back to the place you are.
Bella's brown eyes appeared as if reflected in the shiny black window of my car. "I love this song," the woman inside the tiny store said, bouncing to the beat and diverting my attention. I focused on her mind, trying to find something trivial to drown out the music. The customer across the counter smiled politely, but didn't reply. The cashier glanced out the window at my car. "Nice ride." "Thanks," I said to myself, looking back at the achingly slow gas pump. In the polished metal, I caught my distorted likeness. My eyes were actually amber. The last time they were this color was when... "I have a theory about that," Bella said coyly, her eyes closed, showing me the picture I'd seen that last day. "Wait!" she called. I shook my head desperately, trying to erase the image.
Thousand churches, resolution of all the fruitless searches. Oh, I see the light and the heat. Oh, I wanna be that complete. I wanna touch the light, the heat I see in your eyes.
My hands were shaking by the time the song ended, each word burying itself in me like a dagger. The rumble of a Texas State Trooper's car muffled the final chords, and my eyes rose to meet his. He lifted an eyebrow at my car, making a mental note to watch for my speed-loving vehicle out on the road. I didn't respond, but watched as he sauntered into the mini-mart. "How's things, Wendy?" he said. "Fine, Jack. We haven't had any more trouble today." I listened as a distraction, ignoring the new song that started in the background. Bella seemed to be making music requests tonight. "I Will Remember You" serenaded the clerk now. Such a simple chore became torture. I actually considered whistling to drown out the lyrics. The song could have been written just for me. Gritting my teeth, I watched the numbers changing on the pump. I could suck the gas out of the ground faster than this pump. Thankfully, the cop's thoughts interrupted me. "That's good. We haven't seen hide nor hair of the woman who tried to rob you." "I would have thought that someone with such a striking description would be easy to find," the cop said, as he finished filling a huge soda cup. The pump clicked off, but I didn't move. The image that filled the clerk's mind had frozen me in place. She'd been robbed by Victoria, and lived. "Yeah, the eyes on that woman were spooky. I wonder if they were contacts. Most redheads have green eyes, not black. Wigs are pretty good these days, I guess." The clerk remembered Victoria jumping over the counter and grabbing her by the throat, but then being released when a tour bus pulled into the station. I hope she thanked whatever god she prayed to. To be in the grip of a hungry vampire and walk away with barely a bruise was close to miraculous. Almost gleefully, I replaced the pump. Victoria had to be hunting tonight, perhaps here in San Antonio. An unfamiliar anticipation drifted over me. I could have her tonight, and prevent more killing, more death, and I could rid the world of a ruthless, murdering monster. Not since my vigilante days had I looked forward to killing this much. Even my wish to destroy James was tempered with the urge to protect Bella. No morals, no conscience, not even Bella, would intercede on Victoria's behalf. She would die, and no one would mourn her. "I still don't know how she broke the time lock. 1 second it was there. The next, the door was lying on the floor," the clerk said, remembering the confused scene. "Spooky." The cop brought his cup to the counter. Get those cameras fixed, okay? You really need some kind of protection out here." The girl was about to reply when the cop's cell phone rang. I didn't pay much attention to the message, but the cop dropped his cup and ran out to his car. He jumped in and peeled out, his thoughts focused on a girl a little older than Bella. "Juliet 4, code 3 to Austin. Chris, I need the details of a fire on Sorority Row. Now!" he screamed into his radio. As he sped off, I caught the reason for his fear. A sorority house at the University of Texas was on fire. 4 or 5 were presumed trapped or dead. A strange purple flame had been spotted, and hazmat units had been called to the scene. Venom burned with a purple hue, though it is rare for anyone to see it, it burned so quickly. I tore off after the cop, who was frantically trying to call his daughter, one of the few students still at her house even though the semester had ended. The blue and red strobes pulsed like a visual heartbeat, reflecting off the glassy, wet pavement ahead of me. The patrol car cut through the darkness like a hot knife, traveling at panicked speeds, approaching 120 miles an hour. I followed behind, just another black shadow in the drizzling night, a shadow with a purpose, finally. I was strangely comfortable, racing behind the terrified human. A day ago, I had no purpose, no hope, and was minutes from breaking my promise. But insanity does that to a person, I realized. My problem was that the derangement still lurked within me, whispering, laughing, and taunting me every moment of every day, with deep brown eyes that turned my whole world a dull sepia. "Sure, brown is warm. I miss brown." "I miss brown too, my love." "Which sorority, Chris? I have to know!" The trooper yelled into his radio. His daughter's face smiled back at him from the photo mounted on his visor. "Please God." The man's panic brought back different, disturbing memories of another phone call to another cop not so long ago. Charlie must have been similarly upset, not knowing where Bella had disappeared to during those awful days in Phoenix, but the call I'd made was hardly comforting. Setting Bella in the scene that Alice had prepared at our hotel, and then stepping away, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Still broken, still bleeding, I'd had to leave her in the hands of the human EMTs, unable to touch her. Carlisle had to hold me back when she moaned in pain when they transferred her to the gurney. "They're helping her, not hurting her. You have to let them work, Edward," Carlisle thought. "You'll be with her soon. It won't be that long." Alice showed me the future. Soon I would be sitting next to an unconscious Bella, alone. We followed the ambulance as closely as possible, without attracting undue attention. Even with the traffic, I could hear her heartbeat in the vehicle ahead of us, a faint echo of what it should be. The next hour was excruciating as I paced, exiled to the waiting room at Scottsdale Memorial. Carlisle had been permitted to observe Bella's treatment from behind glass. I watched with him, hearing again the long list of her injuries. The responsibility for her pain rested with me, but I longed to have exacted the same injuries on James. He'd paid the ultimate price, going up in flames in that horrid dance studio, but it would never be enough to cover the cost to Bella. One of the ER doctors took Carlisle aside. "She's stable, thanks in large part to your quick action, Dr. Cullen. We couldn't find any more shards of glass in her wounds. We're sending her to X-ray to verify the severity of the breaks and check for skull fractures. Then she'll be moved to a room. She's very lucky you found her." Carlisle shook the physician's hand. "Lucky for all of us. Thank you for caring for her." Bella rolled by behind Carlisle, pushed by an orderly and accompanied by a nurse pushing a rack of monitors, IVs, and the pint of blood that was slowly dripping into her arm. I took a step toward the door, separating me from her. "No, Edward, don't. You have to be patient," Alice said, catching my arm. "There are other things that you need to do." "What?" "Carlisle has filled out all the forms," I snapped. Another nurse approached my father with yet another clipboard as I spoke. "We need to call Charlie and Renee." I pinched the bridge of my nose. Charlie. The last time I'd seen Bella's father, he'd glared at me out the window of the coffee shop. Carlisle had spoken to him, but even without hearing Charlie's thoughts, I knew he still blamed me on some level for Bella's sudden departure. Alice put her hand on my arm. "Why don't you go outside? The sun is setting, and the shadows are long on this side of the building." She plopped down in a seat and picked up a magazine. Because I didn't know what I would say to Charlie, she couldn't see how he would react, and shrugged. Her thoughts turned to the video camera in Carlisle's car, wondering about Bella's statement that James knew my sister. "I want to see that tape too, Alice," I said before walking away. Watching James torture Bella wasn't something I looked forward to doing, but I had to know what she'd endured. Bella couldn't carry that burden alone. I didn't think before dialing, still unsure of how to tell Charlie what had happened. He answered on the second ring. "Edward," he said warily. "She's not here." "Yes, Chief Swan, I know. I'm calling from Arizona." He took a deep breath as my statement registered. "You're where? Why can't you just leave her alone? She obviously wants nothing to do with you," he said sternly. "That's why I came here, sir, to apologize and ask her to come back. I didn't mean to chase her from her home." Charlie's anger exploded. "That's exactly what you did, chase her away, and now you're stalking her? I'm calling the police." "Hang on, sir, I didn't come alone. My father and sister are here too. Bella knows she is safe. She agreed to see me." "So why exactly are you calling me? If you're expecting a thank you, you're going to be waiting a hell of a long time." An eternity, no doubt. Another lungful of useless air visited my lungs as I prepared for the worst part. If Charlie forbade me from seeing Bella, I wasn't sure what I'd do. "No, sir, I don't expect anything. As I said, Bella agreed to meet us at our hotel. She decided to take the stairs up to our room, and on the way, tripped and fell." The lie tore at my conscience, but I couldn't tell him that not one, but 2 different vampires had tried to kill her. With a guilty swallow, I pushed away her heavenly aftertaste. The intervening hours hadn't dulled the memory of the crimson ambrosia that pumped through her veins. Charlie's sharp intake whistled across the receiver. "She fell?" he repeated. "She's going to be fine, sir," I started quickly, speeding through the worst part. "She broke her leg and received some deep cuts that required stitches. Some ribs were also broken," I finished quietly. I'd let the doctors tell him about the hairline fractures in her skull they'd just discovered. "From falling downstairs? What did you do to her?" he screamed. If only he knew. I didn't even see it happen, but I would when I viewed James' video. That bastard. She fell down 2 flights and through a plate glass window. No one is more sorry about this than I am, I assure you. My father got to her and administered first aid immediately. She's getting the best possible care. "You listen to me, Edward Cullen. You stay the hell away from her, you hear me? If I catch you—" A stony hand took the phone from my ear. "Charlie, you need to calm down. Edward did nothing but try to help. What happened was purely accidental. Bella was excited to see my son and tripped, that's all." Considering her past, this shouldn't be too hard for him to accept, Carlisle thought, remembering the first time he saw Bella's x-rays. Charlie didn't speak at first. "Carlisle?" he asked, confused. Carlisle's voice was calm and even, authoritative but reassuring. "Yes, Charlie. Bella is strong and will recover fully from her injuries. I just got off the phone with Renee. She's already on her way." He paused, but Charlie didn't speak. "I've taken the liberty of reserving a seat on the 8 o'clock from Seattle for you. Do you think you can catch that?" Carlisle's soothing voice had made all the difference, a neutral third party in a volatile conversation. Now, as I raced down the freeway behind the distraught trooper, I recognized the same even control in the dispatcher's voice. "Jack, it was the Kappa Sigma house, not Delta Chi. She's fine. Juliet 4. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief." The word Juliet brought back the last time I'd seen Bella happy, covering the memories of her bruised and comatose face. The cop said a quick prayer of thanks and made promises to attend church more often as he slowed to an irritating 80 miles per hour. "Roger that. Thanks, Linda. Have the victims been ID'd yet?" He thought of his daughter's friend, a member of the house that burned. The radio crackled. "No. According to Austin Fire, some kind of accelerant must have been used. The fire was too intense for rescuers to get into the building. No bodies have been recovered." "I'm going to check out the scene. I'm due for a break. Juliet 4, 10-7. The cop called his daughter on his cell phone again, finally reaching her as he led me through the streets of Austin. The girl's voice shook as she spoke, sniffing back tears as she worried that her friend was among the missing. Her father assured her that he was close and would help. When the cop reached the fire line, I circled the block, parking along a dark side street. I doubted he'd recognize my car, but couldn't risk it. Leaping fences and buildings, I found him again, catching his daughter as she collapsed into his arms. I tried to ignore their reunion, letting the father and daughter comfort each other in privacy. When the details of the fire crept into their conversation, I gave them my full attention. I talked to Kim earlier. She said she'd met a new girl at the library computer lab, and they were going back to the house to watch a movie, the girl said, her voice breaking. She invited me to come, if she was one of the ones that died. I recognized the fear and guilt in her thoughts, the longing to change the past. The two embraced again, and I headed back to the car. The human family had provided me with the lead I needed. A trusting soul would be the perfect target for Victoria. Was she the new girl from the library computer lab? Since Victoria was still using a vehicle, it was no surprise that she left no trail near the fire. But she wasn't getting away so easily this time. After a quick stop near Starbucks to Google a map of the UT campus, I drove to the library. With 10 minutes to spare until closing, I found the computer lab and followed my nose to the terminal Victoria had been using. A few keystrokes and a stunned silence later, I was staring at an airline reservation for Victoria James. To Buenos Aires. What? She bought a ticket to Argentina? My mind raced, sifting through what I knew about my nemesis. She ran when endangered. She liked to play games. Which was this? Her flight was scheduled to leave Dallas in about an hour, so there was no way I could make it in time. But the direct flight first thing in the morning arrived only 2 hours after hers. As the announcement that the library was closing sounded over the loudspeakers, I booked my own flight. The 2 flights left from the same gate, and if luck held, I could verify that she'd actually boarded the plane before I stepped onto one myself. With renewed purpose, I hit the road. Maybe leaving the continent would dull my memories. But did I want that? Bella frowned. What are you asking? My permission? What if traveling further away meant that the image in my head would dull, the voice become less than a whisper? The gaping hole in my chest grew larger at the thought. I thought you were desensitized, she whispered. She taunted me all the way to Dallas, reminding me of all the things I loved about her. I didn't reply to her imagined questions and pleadings, but I didn't try to shut her out either. I thought we were past all the evasiveness, she groused, and I actually smiled. No, she wouldn't leave me to suffer in silence, not as long as she waited somewhere, her heart beating and her cheeks blushing. One cycle would be broken when I caught Victoria. The other would continue, as would Bella's life. By midnight, I was walking through the doors at DFW, my bag over my shoulder. The terminal was quiet. Only a few flights were scheduled to depart in the middle of the night. I headed straight for the first-class desk. I set my wallet on the counter, flipping it open to expose my driver's license and the photo I'd acquired at a drugstore on the way. The redhead in the picture wasn't Victoria, but the resemblance was close enough to trigger a human's memory. Good evening, Mr. Mason. Do you have a reservation? The tall, auburn ticket agent had a warm smile for me. Wow, I wish I was 20 again. I nodded, and the agent, Elizabeth, beamed. Bella commented on the apparent return of my charm. You have to know the effect you have on people. I guess my nervous breakdown and subsequent meal had served a positive purpose, in the end. You're booked on the 7:35 to Buenos Aires. I see your seat is in the last row of first class. I can move you up to the first row if you don't mind the bulkhead, she tittered. Those long legs deserve the extra space. If only I had the vacation time, I'd go with him. Do you think everybody gets their way so easily? Bella smirked. That would be fine, thank you, I said. I angled the wallet before picking it up. The photo caught the agent's eye. She's pretty too. A relative, I hope. She looked a little closer. Is this your sister? I could have sworn I saw her here earlier this evening. Victoria appeared in her mind's eye, picking up her ticket to Argentina. She had been here. No, the photo came with the wallet, actually. I smiled and collected my ticket from Elizabeth. Huh, just coincidence, I guess. Have a nice trip, Mr. Mason. I nodded, then made my way to security. Victoria's scent had been completely obliterated at the checkpoint, but if I really wanted to, I could hack into the security system and see if she'd been photographed. But as soon as I cleared security, I caught the tinge of her sweet fragrance and followed it through the terminal. The trail led me to a bookstore, long since closed, and to a seat facing the windows at my gate. The probability that Victoria was on the run strengthened. I sat on the opposite side of the gate, preparing to wait out the night until I boarded the plane. I'd just opened my laptop when my phone rang. I'd expected Alice to call earlier, when I'd had my lapse, but she'd remained quiet. Was she waiting until I was more coherent before laying into me? Hesitantly, I checked the caller ID. It wasn't Alice, but Emmett. What could he want? Probably just to tease or goad me. I put the phone back into my pocket. No sooner had I gotten my laptop situated when my phone buzzed again. "Answer the damn phone, Edward. I need to talk to you," the message read. The phone rang again in my hand. Fine. "What do you want, Emmett?" "Hello to you too, bro. Glad to hear you're still alive." "Of course I'm alive. Sorry if you lost the bet." "Ouch," Emmett said. "You had Alice worried, you know, with whatever stunt you pulled yesterday. I swear she turned green when she saw that vision and choked out your name. What the hell did you think about doing?" "Damn it, she's not supposed to be watching me." "Nothing. You know how dramatic she is. Is that all you called for, to chew me out?" I prepared to hang up. He didn't answer immediately, and the total silence piqued my curiosity. Where was he? His answer came slowly. "No. I was calling to ask you to come home for Christmas. We all miss you. Esme especially is worried and would love to see you, just for the day." "I can't, Em. I'm waiting for a flight south right now. I don't know when I'll be back." Even if I didn't know where Victoria was going, I couldn't spend the holidays with them. I'd barely kept from purchasing something and sending it to Bella, even knowing how she hated presents. Sans wrapping paper, of course. "Mama's really suffering, missing you. Think about her feelings," Emmett said. I sighed. She'd been so sad when I'd left. I couldn't put her through that again. But maybe if I spoke to her? "I know, and I'm sorry, but seeing me would only make things worse for her, and I don't want to ruin Christmas for all of you. Especially you, Em. I doubt Rosalie would be happy to see me." "She'll get over it. Come on, just for a day, Edward. Can't you even do that?" I couldn't argue the fact that seeing Esme, and even Emmett, wasn't appealing. It was also extremely selfish. "No, I'll be in Argentina. Victoria is only a couple hours ahead of me." I ran a hand through my hair. "How about if I talk to her? Is she there?" "No, she's with Carlisle. It's solstice." That explained the silence. Emmett must be the only one in the house. A traditionally pagan holiday, Carlisle had added it to his personal celebrations at least 2 centuries ago. As long as I'd known him, he'd made a point of going out alone on this, the longest night of the year, and communing with God. He'd invited each of us to join him, and I'd followed him a few times out of curiosity, but none of the rest of us shared the belief he had in a merciful God. Only Esme accompanied him, more out of respect and love than faith. My father spent the dark hours meditating on his life, measuring his actions during the past year, decade, or century, against what he believed God would have expected of him. He confessed his sins and found some absolution in the process. I'd listened to his thoughts, but hadn't shared them. When he and Esme left for his annual worship, the rest of us usually went on an extended hunt. Rarely did so many of us hunt together, but this was the one night when all of my siblings would hit the wilderness together. The feasting usually devolved into snowball fights and games, the one time we really felt like children. The solstice hunt was one of Emmett's favorite events. Had he passed it up to call me? "Why aren't you out with the others?" I asked. "I didn't want to call when Esme was around, and to be honest, I wasn't really interested in going since you weren't going to be there." His words became a whisper. "I miss you, brother." My stomach sank to my knees. "I miss you too, Em, but you should go out. Find a moose or something." He didn't answer. "It's better this way, really. You don't want to be around me. I don't want to be around me, most of the time." Why is that? Bella whispered. Defeated, Emmett sighed. I won't harass you the way Alice wanted me to, so I'll let you go then. One thing, though. I'm pretty sure I can guess what set her off yesterday, and I will warn you that you'd better not be planning to off yourself. You even think about that again, and I'll tear your arms off, you hear me? The threat lost steam, as sadness in my brother's voice flowed directly into the hole in my chest, enlarging it. Thanks, Em, I hear you. Take care of them for me, okay? I couldn't take much more guilt. I will. I closed the phone. My brother knew me too well. Maybe I could arrange to meet him sometime, but then I remembered how he'd affected Bella. He'd brought out her blush with his jibes, treating her like his little sister from the first time he spoke to her. Even on that last, normal day, he'd teased her into a beautiful flush. Thanks a lot, Emmett, Bella whispered, her face a red that rivaled any rose. Embarrassment only enhanced my angel's beauty. My brother laughed loudly. His next words came from a different memory, one from last summer. Hell's not so bad if you get to keep an angel with you. He was right, but the opposite was also true. Hell was infinitely worse without an angel. Without my angel.